Now, I didn't manage to drop the last episode of From last week because I burnt my hand and I couldn't edit the video, so I'm going to post Season 3 Episode 4 today, and then later on I'm going to post Episode 5, so just remember that this was recorded during the week before Episode 5 came out, but you know, I always want to hear your theories, so let me know in the comments below. As always, keep a lookout for more From videos and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already. Well, I've been saying it since the first episode of this season, but From is definitely picking up the pace in Season 3. Although this episode spans a short amount of time, it does cover a lot of ground. The episode is seemingly set in real time as far as I can tell, which I think is really effective and works here. Last week's cliffhanger had a lot of theories about what will happen next this week, and if you've watched my theory video, thanks for that, and if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel. As always, I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, so let's get to it. Now, another theme of this season is the next episode picking up exactly where the one before left off, and this happens again this week. Tabitha, still in the ambulance, know what the tree and the crows mean, but why doesn't she try and run beyond the tree? When I was watching this, I was literally screaming at the TV, because surely you would do anything else rather than turn back around and end up in the town. Is of course exactly what happens. The ambulance crew soon realise that something is wrong travelling back along the road, that it's not the same, and by now it's night time, so Tabitha is understandably a little worried about what's going to happen. The ambulance does eventually reach the town, and I'll pick up with that story in a little bit. But as for the rest of Tabitha's family, Ethan is looking at drawings in his home as the phone goes off. Of course it is his dead brother, warning him this time that his mother's coming back and that she's going to need help. Now, what's very interesting to me about this is it's tonally very different to the previous phone calls we've seen Thomas make to Jim. When he made them, he just threatened and tried to scare him. But in this scene, he was just passing along information here, which is still a little bit creepy because, you know, it's a dead kid giving you a phone call. But it immediately all changes once Jim grabs the phone off of Ethan. In fact, the tone of the kid on the line completely changes as well. I don't know if you noticed it, but he even calls Jim by his name. He doesn't call him Dad, and that really stood out to me. Let me know if you noticed that in the comments below. Up at Colony House, the dead crow is still there, and one detail that I missed last week that I actually noticed this week when I was editing the video is Elgin actually has a crow on his t-shirt. Tilly is watching over his shoulder as all this is going on, and I'm telling you, Tilly, I'm watching you right now because she's definitely sus, she's definitely up to something. Last week, Victor didn't really get much screen time. In fact, he's not really had much this season, but it is seemingly setting up something big with Victor in his past, and by that I mean of course the fact that his dad Henry's just arrived in the town, but I'm also talking about the story that he said he was going to tell Sarah last. And he does start to do this, talking about his early years in the town before the talisman were found. So he decides to take her to the basement and starts to tell her the story of Christopher, the mysterious man in the town who was seeing the symbols that Jade has been seeing as well. And he finally confirms that he was alone in the town for a lot of years before anyone else showed up, with only the boy in white for company. So this is a huge blank that we're starting to get filled in, and I hope we learn more about this because I wonder how many years it was. He also tells Sarah the boy in white told him to bury the dead's possessions as he was too young to do anything else. The suitcase he's been carrying seems to be the leftovers of these people that were in the town at the time, and he starts to tell her about Christopher and how he turned after seeing the symbol. He doesn't have a possession of Christopher's, but I think we know what he brought with him. Yep, it's that creepy puppet from the start of Season 2, who it turns out is called Jasper. He tells her about Christopher and that he started spending more time alone talking to the puppet, which seemed to have gained the power to talk back. At least that's how Victor remembers it. So Victor thinks that this puppet, Jasper, is the key to what happened, or might have some answers around the massacre that happened all these years ago. Boyd is still in the bus overnight trying to watch the creatures, and Randall is along for the ride. And he's not entirely sold on Boyd's plan, but he doesn't seem too against it either. But the creatures don't show up as expected, or at least as Randall expected. which does freak him out a little bit, as he's been doing what Boyd is trying to do here. He spent night after night on the bus and notices the pattern to the creature's behaviour. Just as all this is going on, the ambulance with Tabitha, Henry and everyone else rolls into town as they watch, and the creatures set another trap on the road in order to make them stop and lure them out the car. Both members of the ambulance crew are killed, leaving Tabitha and the cop and Henry, who quickly learns that gunfire doesn't work, so she manages to escape, leaving Tabitha and Henry in the ambulance. Jim sort of rescues them before the creatures can arrive, but she's still cuffed inside. Randall runs to get the toolbox from the bus in order to get the cuffs off. He gets surrounded by the creatures and tries to use the talisman to stop them, but of course, because he's not undercover or behind the door or anything like that, it doesn't work. He manages to throw Boyd the tools and he tries to run back to the bus just as he's swarmed by the bugs again. And we see something that we've never seen before. I've been saying it since the first episode, but the creature's behaviour is changing, and here they offer Boyd the keys to the ambulance in exchange for Randall. With no choice, Boyd takes the keys, leaving Randall behind, and we don't see him die, but he's on the floor and totally surrounded. The surviving cop makes it all the way to Colony House, but accidentally shoots one of the residents, Nikki, by accident when she's trying to get into the building. Makes it inside and Donna has to give her the day one speech as always. Boyd and the others in the ambulance arrive at Colony House with everyone shocked that Tabitha's back in town. All this is going on, Tilly and Elgin are in the kitchen, and it's very odd that they aren't more involved here because, as far as I can tell, the majority of Colony House are in the hallway in the lower ground floor, but they're just sitting there not really talking about anything. And less than a second later, Elgin's having visions again. He follows the woman in white who's covered in blood and asks for his help before she disappears. So he's starting to see things in real time. When Elgin arrived in the town, he was dreaming about the town, but they didn't really expand beyond that in the second season, and I hope they start to give us answers about this soon. Nikki, the Colony House resident that was shot, dies, but the real ending comes when Boyd and Donna look out the window and find that the creatures have left Randall outside of Colony House on top of the ambulance. So he wasn't dead after all, it's just another trap to try and get them out. And that's pretty much where the episode ends. And this, I've got to be honest, so far is my favourite episode of Season 3. I love the real-time aspect to the show that I mentioned at the start, and I love that all these stories that we're seeing are happening at once here. But as always, if you've made it this far, leave a like on the video. If you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel. And my name's Al. Thanks for watching.